So hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel today on careers in psych, no graduate school required. My name is Erin Donahue. I am a faculty member in the psychology department, and we have our great alumni panel on Zoom here. I can kind of just say who everyone is. They can do some more formal introductions, but we have Allison Newton Kendall, who graduated in 2017. We have Tyler Cole, who graduated in 2022, and we have Lizette Pineda, who graduated in 2023. So, again, welcome. I'm going to kick off the panel by just having each member of our panel answer some questions, starting with your major in college, a minor if you had one, and discussing any of your key experiences during college that you felt were really helpful. So we can start with maybe Tyler and then Allison, and then Lizbeth can go ahead.
Lizette will be joining us in a moment.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, there she is.
Maybe if we start with Tyler or Allison.
You want me to start off?
Sure.
All right, sure, I can go ahead. Hey guys, I'm Tyler Cole. Like introduction said, graduated a couple years ago, 2022. Was just a psych major, no minor at the time. Some key experience I had while I was at school. Oh man, there's a lot. I mean, I was in a lot of clubs and organizations. I was part of CERTS. I'm sure you've heard of that. Promoting healthy relationships at CSBSJU. I did a lot of helping with homework helpers, Special Olympics. I did a lot with campus ministry, kind of volunteering with their opportunities that they had, whether that was like food shelf stuff or more tutoring or, helping out with retreats. I tried to kind of spread it around when I was at school. So those are just a couple of highlights of kind of what I was involved in.
Great. Allison, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Allison Kendall now. It's weird having a new last name, but I also was just a psychology major. I did not have a minor. I was kind of late to the game a little bit in picking my major as well. I feel like that might be important to say. But yeah, while I was in college, I really wasn't in a bunch of like organizations. I was in Psych-Chi that had started, I believe I was in that first class of it. And other than that, I also played basketball at St. Ben's. So that consumed quite a bit of time, just being part of the athletic department. But I had some on-campus jobs, just a little bit of things here and there, but otherwise pretty much just the athletic side of things and then being a psych student.
Great. And Lizette, would you like to add?
Hi, yes. I had to change my room. I hope my internet is better here. Hear me?
We can hear you. You're a little bit laggy, but it's okay.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I can hopefully without my video, it's better. But so are we talking about?
We are just going over kind of introductions and your major and minor and any sort of key experiences that you had during your time at CSBSJU.
Okay. So yeah, my name is I graduated this past May, class of 2023. I was the Intercultural Women's Rep for 2 years at the Institute of Women's Leadership. I part of CSB Senate for fall 2023, DIJ. And then my senior year.
I think you might have broken up a little bit. Can you just repeat that last part one more time?
Yeah.
Oh no.
send her a note and let her know she's coming in and out, but maybe we move on to the next.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, so our next question is surrounding your career path. If you want to talk a little bit about the organization that you currently work for or have worked for, and any responsibilities that are involved in your job. And this can be a previous position, a current position, or both.
I can start again. So currently I'm a special education teacher at Coon Rapids High School. So just about an hour down the road, just north of the cities here. And so I'm what they call an academic behavior specialist, to get real fancy on you. But basically what I do is I work with skills across a range of students across a range of skill sets and disabilities. I work mostly with kids that we have different categories. Let me back up a little bit. So kids that I work with primarily are more in the emotional behavioral disorder side of things. And so I teach two classes, mostly around, right now we're focusing on time management and social emotional regulation, and organization, and kind of stuff that kind of sets them up to succeed in other classes outside of this one. So a lot of kids that I mostly work with they do a little bit of special ed and they do a little bit of regular education, or general education as we like to call it. And so they split their days about half and half. And so most of my classes are pretty small. I've had about 10 in the one class and about 5 and 6 in the other. And so I get to teach a couple classes, and then I also have what they call due process responsibilities. And so every kid in special education has what we call an IEP, or an individualized education plan. And so any kid that qualifies for special education, there's the bell. So, so I'm at school. I'm in my classroom right now, so I'm on prep. But the individualized education plan. So each kid that qualifies for special ed has to have one of these documents, and they can be anywhere between 12 and 20 pages long, depending on the services and kind of accommodations the kids need. But so I'm in charge. I have a caseload of students, roughly about, I think right now I have 15 students that are under my management, quote unquote. And so I'm in charge of writing their IEPs, meeting with them regularly, weekly or every other week, whatever it might be. And then coordinating with their teachers and their parents and families about how they're doing in school, what's working well, what's not working so well. And then to bring it all together, we get to meet about once a year with everybody in the room, including the student. And we kind of go over the plan for the next year, whether it's graduation, if they're a senior, if they're a freshman, kind of getting them going through the paces of high school, kind of getting them through, that first year, and trying to hit the next year running. So that's just kind of a little synopsis of kind of what I do. But it's a lot of fun, a lot of variety, never the same day. And if you enjoy working with students, working with young adults, and this is something you'd be interested in, it's a fun path to follow. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. Allison, do you want to share a little bit about your current work or past work that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So I work for a company. It's called Geocom. It's actually local to St. Ben, St. John's area. It's based out of St. Cloud, but everyone in the company works remote. So it's actually really all across the United States, but it's a tech or software company that predominantly does GIS, or software and services for the next gen 911 industry. So basically the way to explain that is the company, we make both the software as well as like the mapping, all of the products that go into a 911 call center. So when you call 911, our software basically routes that call to the closest PSAP, so that basically when the first responders, when you are talking to someone in the PSAP, they can get the first responders to you as quick as possible to an accurate location. We also have kind of tapped into the school safety market, which is very, very, very new. Literally this year might be the first year that's ever been on the market. So we do a lot of basically mapping for schools. And it's not just as simple as like making a map. It's making a map that is basically NINA regulated so that those PSAP centers can actually utilize that map. So when someone calls 911 and they're on a cell phone, they can say, hey, this call is coming from floor 2 in this room. This is the closest exit. Here are all the, points of interest. So, yeah, that's the company I work for. It's a little confusing. It's definitely a market that I'm sure not many of you have heard of. But yeah, so at the company, I work in the proposal and marketing department. So I'm a proposal developer. What that means is I work on anything from proposals, quotes, contracts, to responding to state or local RFPs. Typically in this industry, a lot of the funding comes through federal or grant funding. And so most of our customers who are counties, schools, states, they have to apply for these grants and these fundings. And so when they do that, they release basically a request for proposal or an RFP that then companies respond to and try to win. So I typically put together all those bids and try to win, win everything. But yeah, so it's fun. I mean, I really like working from home, so that's kind of the biggest thing advantage-wise at the company that I'm at. It allows me to really manage my time how I want. But honestly, it's sitting at a desk and really just doing different things throughout the day, working with different products that we have, pricing, meeting with a lot of different individuals throughout the company to make sure the solutions we're offering are correct. But yeah, so that's a little bit about what we do. I also coach basketball still at St. Ben's, so I am still around campus here and there. So that's kind of like the second job. I'd say geocom's my day job, and basketball is more of still a passion. So yeah.
Great, Allison, thank you so much. Liz, do you want to just add also what your career path is, what your current job is, and the organization that you work for?
Yeah, so I am currently at Clues. For those who are unfamiliar with Clues, Clues is Minnesota's largest Latino-led nonprofit. Our headquarters is in St. Paul, and I work in the Minneapolis office building. I am a children's mental health case manager here. So I have a caseload right now of 14, and the age range is 3 to 18, and they all have to meet an SED criteria. So honestly, my day-to-day looks always very different, right? There's always phone calls in the morning that I have to return, emails that I have to return. But basically, I assess and monitor all mental health services that my clients have, and also make sure to fill in the gaps, right, of the services and resources that the family needs. And our primary focus is that our clients receive culturally appropriate services, right? And that it's appropriate also linguistically, that are bilingual primarily. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I do. And I'm about to be 6 months here so far. Our clinic or department right now is transitioning to become a certified behavioral health clinic, hopefully by this January, which will open up new positions for more providers to serve the Latino community here in the Twin Cities. So yeah.
Great, thank you. That sounds like really exciting and important work. So great. I'm going to pause asking our alumni panel questions, and I'm going to take a minute to pose if anyone has questions from the audience that you would like to ask our panelists about their work right now. We can take some questions. Yes.
If she had a minor.
Liz, did you have a minor when you were at CSB and SJU?
Yes, I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but so I was a psych major and a double minor in Latin American studies and gender studies. And for my position in particular, one of the requirements is either a psych, bio major, or I believe social work major. So yeah.
Thank you. Other questions from our audience? Yes.
Sort of across the board here from Tyler to Liz, have any of you within your summers in between like your sophomore, junior, senior years, have you done any internship work or any community work?
Okay, so this question is for the whole panel. Did any of you do any internship or other community-based work in your summers in between each semester?
Yeah, I actually did one. I did it between, what was it? I think it was between junior and senior year, just because we had those COVID years in there and things got a little messed up. But so I worked at a place called the Cop House in St. Cloud. I don't know if any of you have really heard of it before, but it's run by the St. Cloud Police Department, and it's kind of targeted with building community relations with some more of the tougher, for lack of a better word, tougher neighborhoods in St. Cloud that they have a little bit more higher crime rates that they're trying to bring down in ways that is more than just, more than just like making arrests and putting people through the system. It's more targeted at getting to know the neighborhood. What are your needs? What are your, what do you need to succeed? And for me, I was what they called a community engagement intern. And so I got to work with a lot of the social services like the health services and county and other just basic needs kind of stuff. Boys and Girls Club was right across the street, so we did a lot of partnering with them. That was kind of more educational side. I did a lot of tutoring, did a lot of having kids. The bus dropped off right up in front of the house. It's literally a house. It's for the Cop House. So they would get dropped off at the house. They'd run up. We'd do some games. We'd do some homework. We started a community garden. All of this kind of cool stuff to kind of build that community and build those relationships and make those connections that maybe otherwise might not have been made. And so for me, that was a great experience. I opened up a lot of opportunities as long as we're talking careers. There's a lot of different ways you can go with that. It's all just it depends on you, right? It depends on what you want and what you're looking for. But I recommend it. I recommend the experience. So.
I also had an internship. I want to say it was between junior and senior year as well. I interned at Catholic Charities in their HR department. Typically, I spent my summers actually just kind of help narrowing down potential career paths. So that was obviously part of that was I wanted to get a feel for what it was like to work in HR, see if that was something I was interested in. I also early on, after first year and after my sophomore year, both times as well, a lot of that summer I would do shadowing hours for occupational therapy, seeing if that was something I wanted to do. And I highly recommend doing that and job shadowing so you actually get a feel for what the day-to-day job is like. It'll help you narrow down really if that's a potential career path that you want to pursue.
Yeah, and for me, so for my sophomore year and junior year, I was part of the SLF program. And during that time, I interned my sophomore year. This was kind of like still like pandemic time. So honestly, it was a different experience compared to like the end of my junior year. But at the end of my sophomore year, for that summer, I interned here at Clues. And I was just working alongside one of the supervisors here and therapist on assigned just task, looking at diagnosis, looking at specific cases. And then I also took part of working on this noise pollution project with the nonprofit with other interns, which is really cool. But then again, it was just like the pandemic. Honestly, there was like no one really ever at the office. So it was just like me coming in. And then the next summer, I interned at the City of Hopkins as a community engagement intern. I don't know, I just wanted something different and just have a different experience. Didn't really like it, but then again, that's like good, right? Because then, like, okay, I don't think I'll, do community engagement, or it's not something that interests me. So at the end, I was glad I did it, but.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Flow really quick.
Yes.
So I will. If you didn't hear what she said about SLF, that's Summer Leadership Fellows, that application actually opened up today. I will close on December 1st. That's for anyone interested in applying for a summer leadership fellow position, where you are paid for your time and everything like that. And we really want to encourage as many of you as possible to apply. So
the visual that was on the screen earlier, we'll make sure we send these slides to you, Erin, so you can get those into the hands of your students.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, nice plug. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any other audience questions? Yes.
What was the start, so this work off the bat, what was the start of finding an internship or finding work after graduation?
Okay. Yeah, so this is a across the panel question. How did you start finding an internship or looking for a job after graduation? What was that process like for you?
So for me, it was a lot of just like looking at my network, right? That I had kind of already started building throughout my time at CSB and SJU. So it was really like looking at, for example, my internships, just like past, if I was part of a program, that supervisor, like I reached out to her because I was part of Clues during my high school time, doing just like youth programs and stuff. So I had reached out to her and she was like, I was like, hey, like I'm like a psych major. I'm very interested in like the mental health field. And she was the one who connected me to the behavioral health department here. And then we just went off from there. And then similarly with the community engagement internship, again, it was just like other like professional person that I knew and reached out to him. He was actually a U of M prof. And I was like, hey, I'm actually looking for an internship this summer, kind of open to anything. And then he connected me with urban and regional like planner for the city of Hopkins. And then she introduced the community engagement position. So, and kind of like that too, then it was the same thing with job searching, right? So it was just like my network and just like the connections that I had and emailing people, reaching out. And so, yeah.
Allison or Tyler, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I can go next. I definitely agree with Liz on that reach out to your connections. I remember being in college and before I would go to bed some nights, I would pull up my LinkedIn and I would look for connections there and just people I knew and expand my network there. The other thing too is Laura. I met with Laura actually at XPO, although it was not XPO at the time. I can't remember what it was called, but she had helped just sit down, kind of talk about different options of potential career paths I wanted to go, and then set me up with connecting with the alums and just kind of doing some informational interviews, things like that. The other thing I really recommend doing is going to job fairs and career fairs. I know St. Ben's, St. John's host them. They have the Minnesota Private College job fair down in the cities. Just any of those events, go to them. You don't necessarily have to be searching for a job, but anytime you can get in front of someone and sell yourself to them and talk about your experiences and talk about what you're looking for, anytime you actually get that interaction, it's only going to be helpful as you move down the line, whether that's at your first, I saw that, Laura, whether that's at your first time interviewing for something, or maybe it's your third job, but anytime you can get experience face to face, and again, that's just another connection you can add to your database there in case things change down the road. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend.
Can I just pause and interrupt to say, career fairs, yes, there's one this Friday, the government nonprofit fair. We will offer transportation, we'll get you there. Please, to Allison's point, go to a fair, start practicing, start learning about what employers are gonna be hiring you lovely humans when you get to that stage, or internship searching. So I know Tyler's up next. Let's talk about.
Yeah, all these things have been great so far, and these are all things that I use / I would have used, right? You know, there's always those missed opportunities as you go along. You think back, oh yeah, I probably could have used that. But XPD is a great place, right? You got practice interviews, you got career fairs, right? Like was just said, they'll get you there, they'll get you back. All you gotta do is get on the bus, and bring a resume. Don't forget your resume. But yeah, but for me, it's like don't be afraid to ask the question, right? Because you never know, especially with the Johnny Benny Network and whether, or anyone outside of that, right? Just engaging in conversation and just learning about things and, you know, asking that question, hey, like, is this something I could be interested in? Right? Like, I think especially coming out of school, it's easy to get caught up in the fact like, oh, I got to do this one thing because this is what I graduated with, right? But it's important to realize that psychology, especially, right, it applies to all sorts of different fields. And so I've had a lot of people when I interviewed for this job as a teacher, right? They ask you about, oh, so psychology, tell me more about that. Right. And then I was off to the races because like you get all these cool experiences through this field and through this major. Um, and yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but I mean, a lot of that's already been said. But just use the tools that you have because you have a lot of them at your disposal right now. And once you're out of college, it gets a little bit harder because at first, and someone told me this, but finding a job is a full-time job. And so, it's never too early to start, right? So just remember those tools in your back pocket and know what you have to use. So.
Awesome, thank you. I'm also going to plug right here for Handshake as a platform to look for internships and jobs. I think most of you probably already have an account set up, but that is a really great way to filter the types of experiences you're looking for, when you're looking to have them, etc. This is something that I tell all my advisees about who are like, I want to do an internship, but I don't know how to get started. So that's another thing I would recommend is just using Handshake as a platform, as a tool to help you go out and search for a job or internship. Any other audience questions? Yeah.
So, Tyler mentioned how finding a job is a full-time job, and this would be like a question across. Did you guys have difficulties finding your job?
Okay, so another question across the panel. Did we have difficulties finding the position that we're currently working in?
I personally didn't. I was picked off from a previous company. So right when I graduated, I actually worked at St. Ben's for a year in the psych department as the psychology department coordinator. I don't think that's a position anymore. I guess I'm not totally sure if you guys still do that or not, but that was really helpful. That kind of allowed me to figure out the career path I wanted to go. And when I graduated and after that first year, I decided I really wanted to go into recruiting. And so I was actually a recruiter for probably 3-4 years before I switched over to this job. And then really like that recruiting job, the reason I got that was actually knowing someone at St. Ben St. John's. And it wasn't even someone I knew really well. It was just, hey, I was interested in this company. I went on LinkedIn. I saw that, oh, these are the people that are from St. Ben St. John's that work there. And it was a simple message reaching out. Hey, tell me more about your company. Do you have openings? Just like getting a feel for their take on the company. So that's actually how I got my first job. And then after one of my coworkers left and started working for this company, they had just reached out saying, hey, there's an opening here that I really want you to apply for and see if it's something you want. I did not get that opening, but they sent my video interviews over, my resume over to other managers in the company, and immediately I had other offers sitting there. So again, it was just kind of using your connections as you build them. Started off with connections from St. Ben St. John's, and then it evolved for a connection through a different coworker for my first position. So.
Yeah, so I mean, great question, first of all. It can be difficult, but I think for me, like the ticket was, like any way in is a good way in. And I by that I mean like, right, a lot of people will come out and they'll be like, well, I want to make a lot of money. I want all this stuff right away. And in some fields that might be the case, but in some others, like you have to be able to start at the bottom and work your way up. And so for me, like that was I started out as a paraprofessional. And so kind of what a paraprofessional does in school is they're basically like they walk around with kids and they walk them through their school day and they assist the teachers, and they do all this stuff. So very entry level, but it's also like they're also the MVPs of special education. I will forever, like being a teacher now and knowing how my experience as a para was before, like they do a lot and they do a lot of hard work. But that's also how you learn how to do the job. And so like, don't be, I mean, depending on what kind of field you get into, but don't be afraid to get down and dirty a little bit and, you know, learn stuff with the good old fashioned experience. Because that's all, and like kind of going off a little further now, but also like understanding like that's also how you figure out if you want to do something or not, right? Is when you're in the middle of it and you're trying new things and you're really putting everything you got into something, whether it's, you know, and also understanding like not your first job might not necessarily be your dream job. You know, a lot of times like those will come with time. And sure, you'll get your dream job someday, but right, it's a lot more about the steps that you take to getting there. And so for me, like it was a good experience. And for me, like especially, I mean, there's a teacher shortage, right? So especially and in special education, especially. So for me, with kind of the background I had, um, you know, I definitely threw my application out to a bunch of different schools, right? And I got a couple interviews here and there, but like, don't be afraid to try. I mean, you never know unless you try, and put yourself out there and see what happens, right? And one thing I did too is like also sometimes apply to jobs that you might not think you're qualified for, right? And see what happens, right? That's how you know kind of where you're at and where you're going, you know. And sometimes, and like one thing I like to ask in an interview is always like, so like what is, you know, what's one way to get good experience in your field? Or like, is there something that you would like me to work on? You know, like asking those questions, right? I can talk about it all day long, but those are just kind of a few things. I hope that answered your question.
And yeah, so for me, it didn't, I think, again, this is just like my experience, right? But this was honestly the first job that I applied to, and I just took the risk and accepted the position. I think that right now, specifically talking to any like bilingual student, because I'm Spanish speaking, there is a high need for mental health providers that are specifically bilingual, because there's a big gap there. And especially because after the pandemic, right, like there's so many, like specifically we're talking about the Latino community, there's a lot of gaps, and a lot of kids, youth aren't getting the services that they need, and their families aren't, because there isn't any bilingual providers. And if there just isn't enough, right? So yeah, I just suggest, you know, get experience, because I'm sure you all have talents and skills, but those experiences truly help in the job searching process, just to demonstrate like this is experience and these are the skills that I showed or that I learned, right? So yeah, but that was just for me. And I know that for some, a lot of it is also just like, okay, like what is the pay, right? But like Tyler said, like this is probably not going to be like your like first and last job ever in your life. So you have to start somewhere, and just be patient with yourself too.
Awesome. Thank you. Great advice. Any other questions before we continue? Yes.
Were there any advantages and disadvantages as only a psychology major for Tyler and Allison when just trying to get experience or just when trying to put yourself out there, so to speak?
Did we hear the question?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Okay.
I would say kind of one of the things about St. Ben St. John's actually, and this is whether it's psychology related or not, is anytime I went into an interview, you know, everyone has an opinion about psychology majors. Someone, you know, who's at a company, they might think it's one thing when it's not even that. So really it's like you have to sell yourself in those situations. And by going to St. Ben St. John's, yes, you're being a psych major, but really you also picked a school that's forming your way of thinking and your problem solving skills. There's so many things that you don't even realize right now that that's what you're learning in some of these classes. But after you graduate, you're gonna go, wait a minute, okay, yeah, that was a huge asset that I developed in college I didn't realize. And so job postings, and whether it's an internship or it's an actual posting itself, HR employees, they put token requirements out there because frankly, the software they use requires them to put and fill in an empty box. So they might say, hey, we want someone with a 4-year degree in business, or we want someone with a 4-year degree in XYZ, whatever it is. Don't hold back from applying to those positions though, because psychology, just as much as other position or other majors, taps into that way of thinking that you can predominantly answer any question then in an interview process by relating it back to your experience in class, your experience, whether you're doing something like an internship or something psychology related, you're going to have those experiences. Because again, at the end of the day, as a psych major, I felt like I was able to kind of have a better understanding of really like what people are looking for and what they're wanting, and just having that communication open. I just feel like you're at such an advantage being in both the major that you are as well as at the school that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Allison hit that one on the head, but I mean, right. And like, you get the question like, oh, so you're a psych major, you doing grad school, right? You get that question all the time, right? I got that too when I was getting out of school, but right, you don't necessarily like, it's sure, maybe that's on your agenda at some point, but it's not like, it doesn't have to be an immediate next step, right? That's why we have this panel today, right? No grad school required. So it comes back to the point of like, you have to remember that you're not just like, I'm not just a psych major. I'm not just, like I'm a student athlete. Like I led this club, right? Like I do all this in my free time, right? And like also like what Allison was saying, right? Just because it says like, oh, you need a business degree doesn't mean you can't apply, right? Like I know plenty of people even in teaching, right? That they were like one person, she was she was a manager at a bank and she had a business degree and now she's this English teacher here at school, right? Like you just have to remember that you're not confined to the major of study that you have, right? And that's the beautiful thing about psychology is that you can go all those different routes. You can go the business route, you can go the counseling route, you can go the teaching route, you can go to research, right? There's all these different paths that you can take. And yeah, so I guess I can just repeat everything Allison said, but I think my big piece is just like, don't let it confine you, right? Just because it says on your transcript psychology major and maybe nothing else, right? That doesn't mean you're any less of an applicant than someone with 2 majors and 2 minors, right? Right. You just got to figure out what makes you you and how are you going to apply to that. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move on with a couple more formal questions for the panel. So can you tell us a little bit more about both the benefits and the challenges of working in your current respective positions?
Oh, go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I can wait. You good.
Okay. I think what being transparent, I think there's some very heavy days. Just because like when you never know when a crisis could happen with one of your clients, or when there's just an unexpected change in their life. And there's honestly sometimes just a lot of days where it just feels like heavily draining just for you too, like knowing what they're going through, what the family's going through, because at the end of the day, like you're also human, right? And you're feeling for what this family or client is going through. So that can be very challenging, and challenging in a way to dissociate like work and leaving like everything going on at work and not bringing that at home. So like I try my best to establish like boundaries, right? And kind of like dissociate my mind like when I go home and like I do something and I don't even talk about work, just because like I just want to leave that right like here in the office and everything. And I think that's something just healthy for me at least, because it can be mentally just exhausting and also emotionally, because like the work that we do as mental health providers is hard. So just trying to take care of myself can also be a challenge, but I just try my best.
I can go next. You know, I love being a teacher. I love what I do. But that doesn't mean there's not days where you're like, holy cow, did I make the wrong choice? Right? It's just bound to happen. But like for me, a lot of the benefits that I have is like I get to build relationships with students, right? And I have students that come from all sorts of different backgrounds, right? It's, you know, no, definitely the phrase lives that no person is the same, right? So for me, it's fun because I get to invest in them and I get to invest in building a friendship or relationship with them. Because I get to see them every day, right? And I see them in the halls and I see them, you know, after school. I coach too, so some of the kids I get to see on sports teams. But and then in class, like in class for me, a big one is like that light bulb moment when you got a kid that's just struggling, and whether it's math or it's you know something going on that's not school related or whatever, but like when you can see it click, right? You can see it click and they're like, oh, I get it now, right? For me, that's a lot of fun. And also just like seeing them succeed when they accomplish their goals that we set that we set for them at the beginning of the year, right? There's no greater joy for me in knowing that I was able to help them to get to that point. You know, and even though there's a lot of benefits, like there's also some challenges too. Kind of what Liz was saying a little bit. You have those heavy days. You have a kid that is just, you know, it's not their best day. They're not having a good time. Like maybe they don't like school. Maybe something's going on at home, right? You kind of have to be able to kind of tap into that and really be a listener sometimes, right? As teachers, we talk a lot, right? But you also have to be able to be a good listener. And for me, this is a benefit, but for some it might not be. I'm constantly moving around. You know, it's not. I'm sometimes at a desk, but I'm also like up and moving too. I know for some people that's sometimes not quite a benefit, but and then lastly but not least, communication. It's a benefit and also a challenge, because you have to have some tough conversations with parents and students and you know counselors, right? You know, if a kid's not going to graduate and their parent was dead set on their kid graduating that year, right? And you have to have that conversation like, hey, like this might not work out this time, right? There's a lot of, you know, and I think psychology did a really good job of teaching me how to kind of navigate those situations and how to have those conversations and how to, you know, really like understand the complexity behind all of these different things. Um, and so, yeah, and obviously paperwork, right? Not everyone loves paperwork, but it's part of the job. Um, and if you stay on top of it, it's fine. If you let it get away from you, obviously it's a pain. But so there's lots of pros and cons, and that's with every job, right? It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. So.
Some challenges with my current position, I would say actually the biggest one was this is a field that I literally knew nothing about. I didn't even know like there was a 911 industry out there. And so really for me, that challenge was, okay, this is going to be a lot of learning really quickly. And so that would be the biggest challenge. And even till today, like I've been here for a few years and I still am like, gosh, I don't know what that is. But that's also a benefit because I'm constantly learning. And so it's not just sitting here doing the same thing over and over. Like I feel like it's actually learn something new and about something that I personally find very interesting and rewarding. Benefits, I would say there's quite a few. So in my position as a proposal developer, I like being able to really manage my schedule. Like I get to pick what I work on every day. And I get to pick, okay, this chunk of time I'm going to work on this and this I'm going to do this. And so being able to plan my day, I just find that I'm able to be more efficient and more effective at my job, having that flexibility. Other benefits, I really like the work-life balance at my company. When I first started working after college as a recruiter, don't get me wrong, it was fun. And I'm like a lot of people say, like, I always remember hearing people say, work in your 20s so that once you get out of your 20s, you can kind of like coast or whatever. I can't remember the phrase, but at my first job as a recruiter, I worked such long hours. You know, I was super motivated, and obviously, like, money's a motivator to some people. Well, the thing about that though is like my work-life balance is terrible, and so it was just like I figured out, hey, that's not what I want to do. You know, this is what I prioritize as my next job, and so working here like I still can go coach at St. Ben's. Like I can leave whenever I want. I work from home, so I, have all this flexibility. And so that's something that, again, that's important to me. It's not important to everyone, but you kind of figure out as you start working, and even if you start doing internships and things, like you're going to get a feel for things that you prioritize and you want in your future. And so start looking for companies that match those things. But yeah, and then the other thing is that I feel like the company I work for and the industry I'm in, it's really rewarding to me because I feel like what we do really matters. Like both Liz and Tyler, like obviously what they're doing really matters, being a teacher and working in the mental health industry. Like those are things that like, gosh, oh my gosh, these things are so important. It was hard at first for me navigating the business world to kind of find a company and things where you felt like, wow, this is super important. Not just like, wow, I'm doing this because this company needs this. Like, yeah, recruiting was fun, but at the end of the day, was I really changing lives or helping anyone? Up to you to kind of decide that. But with this industry, I really do get excited. Like when we're helping every single school in the state of Iowa develop these maps. Like that's so cool to me. And any software we release, hey, that's only going to help first responders actually get on site and help people. So if that's something that you feel like you really need something rewarding, also look for companies that match what you're looking for because they're out there. Every single company has different departments. They have an HR department, they have all these different things. So you don't have to limit yourself to one thing within the company. Every single company has to operate the same way. They're going to have a business department of some sort. They're going to have a marketing department. They're going to have HR. So start looking for companies that match your values. And then you can kind of see, okay, is there a department that maybe fits your skill set or something that you could learn and work your way up to? So, yeah.
Great, thank you. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to open up questions to the audience. If anyone has any last minute questions for our alumni panelists. Yes.
What does the typical day look like?
Okay, what does your typical day look like at work?
I can start. So typical day for me. So I mean, I got a pretty sweet schedule. I'm not gonna lie. I start at 7 and I get done at around right now. So, right. I mean, it's pretty, and the teacher schedule, right? You get summers off, all that jazz. But a typical day for me. So I kind of do a little variety of stuff, right? I mentioned the whole case management and IEP stuff earlier. So I teach 2 classes. We have 5 hours in a day, and so I teach 2 hours of those days. And then one of those hours I have a prep, so just kind of get ready for class. And then for roughly about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, I have what they call due process time. And for me, that's my time to go meet with the students on my caseload, and write IEPs and catch up on some work, answer some emails, right? It's kind of my time to get those meetings out of the way and really get to know those students that I'm assigned to. And so, right, it's like I said, no day's ever the same. Like, 1 minute I might be working on a lesson for my next class. The next thing you know, I have to go talk to a student, who needs some help with something, right? And so I have students that come into my office all the time asking questions. Kids come to see me from time to time on whether they're having trouble with a class or how to talk to a teacher, right? I'm kind of that support point for them. And so that's kind of a typical day for me. I mean, it's pretty run of the mill and there's a lot more that goes into it, but that's pretty basic.
And so for me, my position is hybrid. I try to work in the office as much as I can, and usually throughout the week, I probably take like a day or two working from home. And that's usually only also if I don't have to see clients. So with my caseload, I have to meet with these clients once a month. So I try to get those scheduled in earlier in the month, so then I have time later on in the month to work on documentation. With Tyler too, I also do like IEP meetings with them, making sure that's all up to date and they're getting their needs met. And so like, for example, I'll just say like today, I came in the St. Paul office around 8:30, had a consult meeting where we go over 2 cases. And that was from 9 to 11. And then for the rest of my day, I had to touch base with a parent because one of my clients is an inpatient right now, had to connect with a therapist there at the hospital, then connect with the school therapist for her. So a lot of calls, and then had to call the insurance for transportation. And then I had the panel. So today was just a lot of calls and then emails, and in between some documentation, because as case managers, we do a lot of documentation, and it can honestly like creep up on you if you don't prioritize and just get it done. But yeah, it also just looks very different when I see clients and everything. But usually it's calls, emails, house visit or office visit, and then just a lot of calls and in between stuff. So.
Any other questions?
Oh, I can answer that too. I forgot.
okay.
Also,
That's
I
okay.
was my mouse is hiding from me. My standard day, typically I work, I try to shoot for about 40 hours a week. I get to pick my schedule on what that is. Usually I work anywhere from like 7 or 7:30 in the morning. I'm done anywhere from 3:30 to 4, usually. And then after that, I get to go to basketball practice. So throughout the day, I do work remote all the time. Everyone in my company does. So I literally never go to an office because there isn't an office. But my day to day, have meetings. I have, set aside time for me to just get work done. I have a very active 4-year-old golden retriever who is just at my lap right now. So I still get up. I still can do things. I can go on a walk during the day. Like, you have to balance out your day how you need it to be most efficient. So yeah, I love working from home. It's not for everyone. Obviously, as you'll find the post COVID climate, there's a lot of different options in terms of like what you're looking for work wise. So figuring out what you like best and what works for you will help.
Thank you so much. So we are actually out of time. Let's have a round of applause for our